It is my ultimate dream in life to drink orange juice. Now we all enjoy reading manga, right? 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 I do. I like all comics. No. Most. I like most comics. When you compare American, European, Japanese comics, they all have something in common. They're great. But real talk, there's differences in all of them. Whether that be story pacing, subject matter, art style, length. American comics, especially American superhero comics from the big two, can have the same characters for a long time. This is usually done by having runs of the same character. So you'll have the same character, but different writers, different artists, and then a different story altogether using the same old character. This way you can have a lot of different stories with the same people, and it can be a lot of fun, but it can also be challenging to recommend new readers where to even begin if they wanted to start reading Spider-Man or Superman or whatever. That's not the case with Japanese manga though. With Japanese manga, it's usually by American standards a single run. So where do you begin when you want to read a manga? Well, you begin at the beginning, volume 1.
Always.
It's like a really long TV show with the same director, same actors and everything. It's like, just start at the beginning. Maybe it doesn't get its footing until like season 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, but like you can start at the beginning. Maybe you can skip some of that stuff, but like you don't have to. Maybe you shouldn't, but you can. Good water. Now, because manga is one story, it obviously also has one ending, which I normally say is great. But there's a consistent problem with manga, and that's largely the endings suck. Of course the journey can be fun though. I mean, I remember being a little lad and waiting weekly for the newest Naruto to drop. I'd drop everything to read it. It was a blast, an absolute ball. But the feeling I had when they dropped the ball was not at all fun when it was all done. The power creep, the destiny reveal, the long war arc, it was just too much. Simply, the ending to Naruto was not my cup of tea. You can disagree. There's no beef with me. You can like what you like. I won't put up a fight. Wings. I've heard it said before that the importance of endings might be a cultural thing, or that the framing of stories is just different in Asian stories and whatnot, and there's probably some truth to that. But at the same time, you have comics and stories from Japan that are globally successful, and they oftentimes have great endings to their stories. Sure, the endings might be different than they would be in a Western story, but for a conclusion to the story that they were writing, it made sense, it was exceptional, it was really fun to watch. Like Akira or Death Note, you look at Miyazaki's works, which are anime, we're talking about manga here, but you know, for story purposes, okay, they're good, okay, people like them globally. There's just some universal principle about a satisfying ending being a desirable trait. I mean, we see the opposite with endings that are bad, how they can completely tarnish the reputation of what came before it. You just think of the uproar globally from Game of Thrones. It wasn't like the Asian markets loved Game of Thrones ending because they liked stories to be told differently. Everybody hated it. And if you're like me and you like sitcom shows, the taste in my mouth from the last 5 minutes of How I Met Your Mother, it still tastes bad. That's a good Coke though. So after giving it a little think, I think I have some reasons for why manga endings can often
suck.
The manga business is cutthroat. Oh my gosh. Shonen Jump has a notorious reputation for ruthlessly cutting out its unpopular series. Lately they've seemed to be giving some of the series more time, but still it's like 1 volume, maybe 2. I'm not entirely against it, but at the same time, you know, 1 volume isn't always enough time for a manga to really get its footing, or any story for that matter. There are a ton of series that begin to get enjoyable and then are just ruthlessly annihilated. You know, they just have a little dip in popularity and then, yeah, they're gone. They're dead in the water, dead. Story threads that were being planned out have to be tied up super quickly in order to have any semblance of an ending, and it's just not satisfying at all. You know, because it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to go on longer, but it couldn't because it got axed, so they just had to end it. So a lot of mangas have bad endings because they just dipped in popularity and then they cut them. They just said, finish it. Do it now. Off the top of my head, there's the guy who did Hell's Paradise. He did a new manga after that, and it was starting to get interesting, but it wasn't interesting enough, so it got canned. Look at some epic story like The Lord of the Rings with The Return of the King, and it's often criticized for having an overly long ending. But that long ending in some respects is deserved. I mean, it's a really epic story and you want to have a satisfying full conclusion. But you couldn't do that with a weekly comic. I mean, having a whole volume for an epilogue just doesn't seem feasible. That'd be 7 to 8 weeks of low action stakes just wrapping up a story in what's already a crowded marketplace with limited real estate. I mean, they want to push it along, finish the story so that they can introduce potentially the next big hit. Now, I'm definitely not saying that a full volume is necessary for ending something, but what I am saying is that when you have 100+ chapters of a story, having it end in like one chapter can feel jarring, which is another reason for why these endings might not always land well. It's just a big contrast that can make you feel a little underwhelmed. So having a rushed ending that was never intended, obviously that's one recipe for disaster in terms of a satisfying ending. But also, the popularity contest itself is brutal for the creation of stories. Adding interesting stuff can be a problem too. And you're like, well, hold on. How is adding interesting stuff a problem? How is it a problem? You might be asking. You might be asking that right now. You might be thinking, how is adding an interesting thing a problem? How is it? Huh? I'll tell you right now. The author might add some new interesting stuff that was never actually intended to be in the story in the first place. And while it might be interesting, it might not always make sense why exactly it's there. So by the time you get to the end of the story, it's like, yeah, you got all these new interesting things, but it doesn't actually mesh well always with the actual beginning of the story. So if you were to start over and get to the end, you're like, how did we get here? What are you doing? That disconnect often happens because the story is not planned in its totality. It's going week to week and adding new things along the way just to keep the popularity up. So yeah, it's a fun journey, but when you get to the end of the journey, it just kind of ends. It's some good tea though. On the opposite side of the spectrum, you have prolonged endings. Things that just don't seem to ever end and are probably being pushed never to end, to have the journey go on indefinitely. But if you go on an indefinite journey, your destination can easily be lost along the way. Like if you want to drive cross country to get to the other side and see the beach or something, it's okay to make a few stops along the way. Heck, it could be fun. But if your journey takes years and years and years to end and you stop at every single place along the way over and over and over again, well, getting to the beach kind of loses its luster. Yeah, this place is cool, I guess. These series are so popular, making so much money, that they just never want to give it up. You know, like even if they end, they're gonna make it keep going somehow. They never want to give up that money. The other issue with this indefinite journey is that because manga are single runs, they do eventually have to end. So what do you get when you have a story that's never supposed to end? A bad ending. Some manga just become too long for their own good. Well, it's good that they became a cash cow, I guess. But the milk from that cow is getting spoiled. And swallowing it makes you want to throw up. It's good milk though. My favorite way to drink coffee is black.
Like a man.
I mean, I put some creamer in this one because it was hot. I wanted to drink it faster. I put some sugar in it too so it tastes better, but my favorite way to drink coffee is black. In both cases of rushed and prolonged endings, Another factor contributing to the deteriorating quality of the writing, and this is something that happens a lot, is the deteriorating quality of the writer's mental and physical health. The working conditions of a mangaka are pretty brutal, and that's been documented over the years. We all know they have tight deadlines, and those deadlines catch up on you physically. Nothing can go wrong about having tight deadlines. Nothing. Nothing! I can make a video a week.
It's not too much.
It's not too much.
I am not going crazy. I'm not going crazy. I'm not going crazy. My quality isn't dropping. I'm not running out of jokes. I'm not running out of things to say. I'm not going crazy. That was a little weird. Here's Kishimoto's schedule while working on Naruto. It's a lot of work. Kishimoto was married in 2003, but because of how busy he was with Naruto, he didn't take his honeymoon until 2015. Here's a popular image that you can find of the average mangaka's schedule. Notice how there is just a few blocks for free time, and the gray is sleep. And that's not enough sleep. I'm obviously happy with mangakas giving their life to the craft, but I don't want them to actually give their lives to the craft. It comes at a cost, and that cost is not just to the creator's health, but it's also to the reader. If the stories that they're making are written and edited week to week, and they're already overworking themselves, it's just a recipe for disaster in terms of coming up with a proper, satisfying conclusion, or even to keep the story going in a satisfying way. Keeping the writing quality up simply is not in the cards. Oh wait, it's in this one. Good coffee. In the end, stories take time, especially manga. I mean, writing and drawing an entire story is a monumental task, and my hat goes off to anybody attempting it. Having manga end in a way they deserve is really hard, but when it happens, it's amazing. It's just, well, it's just not always amazing. Bye. Also, while we're here, do you read comics or manga? I made a comic book. Buy my book. It's good. Yeah, do whatever you want.